Good evening. You're watching Hairenik Media's weekly newscast. We have a packed broadcast tonight with updates on the ARF Eastern Region's 126th Regional Convention, breaking developments on Armenian hostages in Azerbaijan, the European Parliament's resolution, Armenia's peace agreement with Azerbaijan, Gyumri's upcoming elections, and the region's highlights with ARF and ARS anniversary celebrations. Let's begin. The Armenian Revolutionary Federation, Eastern United States, held its 126th Regional Convention from March 13 to 15 in Warwick, Rhode Island, with the participation of delegates and invited guests from across the Eastern United States, the ARF Bureau, and ARF Canada. After extensive discussions of national and community objectives, the convention determined its strategic direction for the upcoming 2 years. The Regional Convention issued the following statement. The Armenian Revolutionary Federation, Eastern U.S. 126th Regional Convention reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the security and sovereignty of Armenia and the restoration of Artsakh. Rooted in our enduring national values and reflecting the steadfast views of Armenians across the Eastern United States, we stand resolute in defending the long-term viability and survival of the Armenian homeland. In this critical moment for our nation, we categorically reject Nikol Pashinyan's reckless capitulation of Armenian soil, security, and sovereignty. His recent endorsement of Azerbaijan's terms of surrender, abandoning the right of Armenians to return to Artsakh, forsaking Armenian hostages, and normalizing the occupation of Armenian land constitutes an unacceptable betrayal of our national interests. With a renewed sense of purpose, we commit to investing in Armenian American youth, fostering the rebirth of our diasporan identity, and reimagining our community institutions to meet the challenges of a new era. To amplify our impact, we will expand and modernize our media outreach across multiple platforms, ensuring the swift, dynamic, and interactive dissemination of high-quality news, incisive analysis, and editorial perspectives to a growing global audience. As part of this renewed vision, we pledge to further strengthen the Armenian National Committee of America at the local, state, and national levels, solidifying its role as a unified voice of Armenian and allied Americans in the pursuit of justice, security, and a stronger future for our homeland. At the conclusion of the convention, the following members were elected to serve on the ARF Eastern U.S. Central Committee. Ani Chawlasyan from New Jersey, Sosi Burujian, Richmond, Virginia, Hovik Charchaflian, Worcester, Massachusetts, Zovinar Hamakordzian, Detroit, Michigan, Steve Mesrobian, Providence, Rhode Island, Aran Nazarian, Boston, Massachusetts, and Garo Tashian, Providence, Rhode Island. In a phone call with his family, imprisoned former Artsakh State Minister Ruben Vardanyan sent 2 audio messages from his cell in Baku, announcing that he would remain silent until the final court session and only speak in the presence of international representatives. Vardanyan emphasized that his hunger strike is not just personal, but a protest against the sham trial and the broader injustice faced by Armenians. He declared, "This is not just a trial against me, but against all Armenians and the Armenian state itself." His words serve as a stark reminder of the dire situation for Armenian detainees in Azerbaijan. In an overwhelming vote, the European Parliament has officially adopted a resolution calling for the immediate release of Armenian hostages held in Azerbaijan. The measure passed with 523 votes in favor, 3 against, and 84 abstentions. The resolution raises the alarm over staged trials and reports of inhumane treatment, including the use of prohibited psychoactive substances on detainees. Their fundamental rights are systematically violated, the document states. The European Parliament now calls for immediate medical access, fair trials, and independent investigations. The United Representatives of all Armenian churches worldwide have issued an urgent appeal to Christians around the world, calling for the immediate and unconditional release of Armenian hostages held in Azerbaijan. The letter was signed by 100 clergy members. Religious leaders in Armenia are joining the outcry over the treatment of Armenian captives in Azerbaijan. The Supreme Spiritual Council has issued a statement demanding that Armenian authorities take decisive steps to halt the ongoing illegal detentions and mistreatment. The Council also urged global leaders and international human rights organizations to intensify their pressure on Azerbaijan. The statement specifically condemns Azerbaijan's use of sham trials and torture-induced confessions as a means to justify future aggression. In London, Christian leaders, including Bishop Hovagim Manukyan, have sent a formal appeal to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, demanding the immediate release of Armenian hostages. Their letter highlights Azerbaijan's refusal to allow Red Cross visits and independent observers. They also expressed deep concern for Ruben Vardanyan, who remains on hunger strike. The UK is now urged to take a firm diplomatic stance against these human rights violations. In a decision prompted by Ruben Vardanyan's family, former Armenian MP Mane Tandilian has ended her hunger strike. She had been fasting since March 1 in solidarity with Armenian prisoners unlawfully tried in Baku. She said to supporters, "Ruben's family asked us to stop so that he does not feel worse for our sake." Tandilian and her team plan to shift their activism to more direct actions. According to ANCA Executive Director Aram Hamparian, Armenian officials are not actively discussing the plight of Armenian hostages during meetings with U.S. officials. Discussions on the issue are reportedly only being raised by the American side. Meanwhile, Ruben Vardanyan remains on a hunger strike. His condition is deteriorating as the international community scrambles for a response. Let's go to our correspondent in Yerevan, Nare Navasartyan, for more on Armenia. Welcome, Nare.
Thank you, Ani.
Armenia and Azerbaijan have finalized negotiations on a controversial peace agreement. Tell us more.
The Pashinyan government has once again demonstrated its willingness to surrender national interests in the name of peace with Azerbaijan. The finalized agreement, which the opposition has widely condemned as a capitulation, marks yet another humiliating chapter in Armenia's recent history under this administration. Some key points of concern include, number one, erasing Artsakh from Armenia's future. The agreement reportedly requires Armenia to amend its constitution, eliminating any reference to Nagorno-Karabakh. This is a blatant erasure of our people's historic ties to the region, and it's fulfilling Azerbaijan's long-standing demand for total sovereignty over this region. Number two, there are no guarantees for Armenia's security. Pashinyan has agreed to prohibit third-party military forces along the Armenia-Azerbaijan border, effectively blocking any possibility of a protective presence from Russia or other allies. This leaves Armenia exposed to Azerbaijani aggression with no real mechanisms to enforce border security. Number three, the concern is that we're surrendering legal leverage. Armenia has agreed to withdraw all international legal claims related to the conflict. This move, that was hailed by Baku as a win for diplomacy, effectively shuts down any future avenues for seeking justice for war crimes, forced displacement, and destruction of our heritage in Nagorno-Karabakh. Number four, this agreement, even if it's signed, might just pave the way for further Azerbaijani demands. The signing of this agreement does nothing to prevent Azerbaijan from pressing for more territorial concessions in the future. And with Armenia's leadership demonstrating a pattern of retreat, Aliyev is likely to continue pushing for control over additional border areas, including potential claims on Syunik, the southern region of Armenia. The agreement that has been reached, reported by Baku, has been uploaded by many third parties, including the US, EU, Georgia, Russia, and Iran. France's President Macron has also welcomed the news. Germany, in particular, has praised Pashinyan's courageous steps in making significant concessions to Azerbaijan. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock characterized Armenia's submission as a necessary sacrifice for regional peace. However, many in Armenia see this as nothing more than a diplomatic cover for Pashinyan's systemic dismantling of national security and territorial integrity.
Thank you, Nare. In Yerevan, there were protests outside the UN building and near the Swiss embassy. What were the demands of the protesters?
On March 13, a significant gathering of Artsakh refugees and supporters took place outside the Swiss embassy in Yerevan. The demonstrators expressed their gratitude to the Swiss parliament's lower house for adopting a resolution in December 2024, calling for Switzerland to host an international peace forum addressing the safe and dignified return of displaced Armenians to Artsakh. The protesters urged the upper house of the Swiss parliament, the Council of States, to adopt the same resolution in its upcoming session on March 18. They carried signs with messages such as, "We want our compatriots to return to their homeland," and "Release the prisoners, tomorrow it will be late," emphasizing the urgency of the cause. Gagik Bahuns, the acting speaker of the Artsakh parliament, addressed the crowd, saying, "Various forces, both abroad and within Armenia, are trying to portray the situation as if the Karabakh issue is resolved and no longer exists. We categorically reject these claims. We have fought and will continue to fight for our collective return to our historical homeland." The demonstrators called on the Swiss government to leverage its neutral mediator role to initiate international discussions on the displaced Artsakh Armenians' right to repatriation. There is another protest. Protesters in Yerevan took the streets calling on the United Nations and the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, to step in and investigate Baku's trials of Armenian prisoners. They argue that these so-called trials are nothing more than political theater, designed to humiliate and punish Armenians rather than deliver justice. The focus of the outrage is the case of Ruben Vartanyan, but all former leadership of Artsakh also remains in Azerbaijani custody since September 2023, and they're now facing trial under highly dubious circumstances. Activists and human rights advocates warn that these trials are being used as a tool of intimidation, with Azerbaijan sending a clear message that it can act with impunity. They insist that international organizations must step in and ensure that detainees are treated fairly and in accordance with international law. With frustration mounting and no real action being taken, demonstrators are vowing to keep the pressure on until their demands for justice are heard.
Narena Vasartian, Hairenik Media Yerevan correspondent, thank you.
Thank you, Ani.
Commenting on the one-sided Azerbaijan peace agreement being forced upon Armenia, the Armenian National Committee of America, the ANCA, seeks a real peace, a just and enduring peace that respects the rights of the Armenian nation and ensures the return of Armenians to Artsakh, not a fake peace, a one-sided surrender of Armenian security and sovereignty forced on Yerevan at the point of a gun, stated ANCA Executive Director Aram Hamparian. Meanwhile, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev said during a speech at the Global Baku Forum that the level of trust in Armenia is close to zero. As a result, he added, "We need documents. We need papers from Armenia in order to demonstrate that the efforts toward the peace treaty are genuine." Moreover, Aliyev demanded that Armenia's constitution be amended, its territorial claims against Azerbaijan be ended, and the OSCE Minsk Group be dissolved. Following the announcement of the completed draft treaty, Ishkhan Sagatelian, representative of the ARF Supreme Council of Armenia and representative of the Armenia Alliance opposition faction, argued that the agreements have not secured any substantial benefits for Armenia, noting that they fail to clarify the Armenia-Azerbaijan border, do not guarantee the withdrawal of Azerbaijani forces from Armenia's occupied territories, do not prevent further aggression by Azerbaijan, and do not address the right of return for ethnic Armenians in Artsakh as outlined in the November 9 trilateral ceasefire agreement. Moreover, he pointed out that the agreements do not resolve the issue of Armenian prisoners of war held in Azerbaijan. In a striking revelation, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan confirmed that Armenia will grant a road to Azerbaijan as part of the peace agreement. Critics warned that his decision, made without clear reciprocal guarantees, could set a dangerous precedent. The finalized document has no provisions for securing Armenia's border, preventing future Azerbaijani aggression, or ensuring the safe return of Artsakh Armenians. The absence of a clear stance on the so-called Zangezur corridor has also raised questions about what exactly Armenia has conceded in these negotiations. The Committee for the Defense of the Fundamental Rights of the People of Artsakh convened in Yerevan, with the full participation of all members. In a statement, the committee has called on international actors, especially the OSCE Minsk Group co-chair countries, to take a leading role in ensuring the release of all Armenian hostages held in Baku. The statement noted that the committee decided to intensify efforts to release Armenian prisoners of war held in Baku due to the inaction of the Armenian government. A demonstration at the Brandenburg Gate demanded the release of Armenian detainees in Azerbaijan. Organized by the Central Council of Armenians in Germany and human rights groups, the protest called for sanctions, international monitoring, and protection of Armenian cultural heritage. Speakers emphasized the situation's urgency, highlighting Ruben Vartanyan's hunger strike. Organizers are preparing a petition to the European Parliament and planning further European protests. As Gyumri approaches snap elections on March 30, political tensions are on the rise. Opposition forces aim to unseat the ruling Civil Contract Party in Armenia's second-largest city. Key candidates include Ruben Mkhitaryan, a media figure with a strong social media presence, and Vartan Gugasyan, a controversial former mayor. With no party expected to win outright, post-election coalitions will likely determine the city's leadership. Armenia's Prosecutor General Anna Vartabetyan has petitioned to remove parliamentary immunity for two opposition MPs, Hovik Aghazaryan and Daron Margaryan. Both politicians face serious allegations, though details on the charges remain scarce. At the initiative and expense of the state budget, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has given an interview in Yerevan to Turkish media, Azerbaijan's key ally, a major force in the 2022 Artsakh war and the state that committed the Armenian genocide and denies it to this day. Pashinyan stated that international recognition of the Armenian genocide is not among the foreign policy priorities of the Yerevan authorities. He emphasized that for Armenians, Metz-Yeren, as he called it, is an indisputable historical fact, and it cannot be denied. However, he stressed that the focus should be on addressing contemporary challenges, particularly in terms of Armenia's security and regional stability. Armenia's Deputy Speaker of Parliament and Special Envoy for Armenia-Turkey Normalization, Ruben Rubinyan, completely ignoring Turkey's preconditions for the normalization of relations, reaffirmed that Armenia is fully prepared to normalize relations with Turkey without preconditions. In a report broadcast on Turkish NTV, Rubinyan stated that Armenia seeks a comprehensive resolution of its relations with Turkey, including the establishment of diplomatic ties and the reopening of the land border, reiterating Armenia's willingness to normalize relations unconditionally, stressing that the country is ready to open the border and fully settle relations yesterday, today, and tomorrow. According to Akif Çağatay Kılıç, the Turkish president's chief advisor on foreign policy and security, there are currently no prerequisites for the mutual opening of diplomatic missions between Turkey and Armenia, emphasizing that a peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan is the key to resolving many issues. The Turkish official confirmed that the security and territorial integrity of Azerbaijan are the most critical factors for Turkey, adding that his country is closely following the process between Azerbaijan and Armenia after the Second Karabakh War, the issue of a peace treaty, and are taking appropriate steps. A bipartisan group of U.S. congressional lawmakers intends to introduce a bill called the Azerbaijan Aircraft Engine Export Restrictions Act, which would prohibit the export of engine parts for the aircraft of Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev. With this bill, the congressmen are trying to secure the release of Azerbaijani academic and anti-corruption activist Gubad Ibadoglu, who is under house arrest. The bill requires U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio to submit a report to the relevant congressional committees within 30 days of the bill's enactment. The report will detail the status of Gubad Ibadoglu's detention, U.S. diplomatic efforts for his release, and attempts by Azerbaijan to circumvent sanctions. On March 8, a 4.6 magnitude earthquake was recorded 6 kilometers northeast of the city of Spitak. The intensity of the underground tremor in the epicentral zone reached 6 to 7 points. The earthquake was felt in the Lori, Shirak, and Tavush regions with an intensity of 4 to 6 points, and in the Godaik, Gerarkunik, and Aragadzotsan regions with an intensity of 2 to 4 points. The ARF Detroit Azadamard Gomide celebrated the 135th anniversary of the founding of the Armenian Revolutionary Federation with a special gala banquet at the Regency Manor and Banquet Center on Saturday, March 1st. Welcoming remarks were delivered by Gomide member Shanjam Gochian. The event was led by Masters of Ceremonies Vrej Dauli, chairman of the ARF Bureau Youth Office Educational Committee, who emphasized the unique features of the ARF structure and the party's invaluable role in the diaspora, and particularly in Detroit, listing a group of humble party members in Detroit whose service and efforts endow the community with a church and community center. The Detroit Homenemen Scouts and Marching Band conducted the flag ceremony and sang the national anthems of Armenia and Artsakh. In his remarks, chairman of the ARF Azadamard Gomide, Sebu Hamakordzian, touched upon the challenges posed by the recent geopolitical developments, the inevitability of removing anti-national policymakers of the Republic of Armenia authorities, as well as the imperative of ensuring a dignified life and the right of return for the people of Artsakh. The keynote speaker for the event was Georgi Oshagan, member of the ARF Eastern Region Central Committee, who, citing the ARF Manifesto, examined the socio-economic and political prerequisites of the founding years, drawing parallels with the current critical and decisive moment, and called on everyone to unite, citing the message of the 135-year-old manifesto. Oshagan added that the ARF touches every facet of our daily experience as diasporan Armenians. In the upcoming years and decades, the ARF will need the power of the people to build new community centers, establish new programs, and create new opportunities to carry us toward and into the 22nd century. The event also included a traditional award ceremony and dance performances by the Hamaskain Araks dance group. The cultural program included musical performances by Detroit's own Hrant Gulian, who performed Armenian folk songs. At the conclusion of the event, renowned patriotic singer Karnik Sarkisian and his band performed songs that highlighted Armenia's heroic past and honored those who have given their lives for the homeland. The Eastern region of the Armenian Relief Society celebrated its 115th anniversary with 2 events on March 8, coinciding with International Women's Day. On this occasion, a seminar was held in New York with presentations emphasizing the essential role of Armenian women in the ARS and highlighting the organization's long-standing programs that have endured through the most challenging periods in Armenian history. Speakers focused on their vision for the ARS of tomorrow and the need to nurture the next generation's involvement and leadership. Also, the organization's contributions to advancing women's rights on the global stage were discussed. The seminar celebrated the strength, dedication, and enduring legacy of Armenian women and the ARS, reaffirming their vital role in shaping a hopeful and thriving future for Armenians worldwide. In addition, the 115th anniversary dinner of the ARS Eastern Region of the United States was held at Liberty House in New Jersey, in the presence of the prelate of the Eastern Prelacy Archbishop Anushavan Tanyelian, member of the ARF Eastern USA Central Committee Georgi Oshagan, ARS Central Executive Board Chairperson Arusyak Melkonyan, chairpersons and members of the executive boards of the ARS Western Region in Canada, clergy, representatives of ARS chapters in the region, ARS members from across North America, as well as members of community organizations and guests. The evening was dedicated to honoring the ARS's legacy of service and the remarkable women behind its mission. That's a wrap on tonight's broadcast. Stay with us for more updates as these stories develop. I'm Ani Zargarian. Thank you for watching, and good night.